Hey, Jem here. Welcome back, mums and dads, carers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever you are. If you're working with or, coaching, supporting a child who's demand avoidant, then maybe this is the channel for you. My name is Jem, and this whole channel is dedicated to my daughter Ruby, who's 6 years old, and she is demand avoidant. So let's get into it because what do you do and how do you stop your demand avoidant child from smacking you or hitting you and their siblings and their friends and family members? Well, let's just start with this. A dysregulated adult really can't help a dysregulated child. And I suppose the elephant in the room for me when I started to come across my daughter's condition was, do I know how to regulate my emotions? Because I thought I did, but actually working with Ruby and seeing my own reactions, I realized that reacting the way that I did, like to regain control or assert dominance by shouting, it it completely backfired, and I wasn't in control of myself as much as I thought as I was. And I don't think that you know parents believe genuinely that shouting at their children or smacking their kids, which I've never done, and I don't see any benefit to that. Neurotypical or neurodivergent, no parent thinks that smacking or shouting is probably right, but we may fall back to old patterns when we're under stress, and when we don't have the support and we don't have the tools, then what do we expect? We're also human. But is there a better way? Yes, but before we speak about a better way, you can't learn the skills unless you've got the real desire to understand that there's something different about your child. And this took me a little time to get my head around because I was in denial. I was a dad that said, no, she's being a brat, she's being difficult. Why should I treat her any different? If she smacks one of the boys, she deserves the same treatment. But if you are sounding like that, don't worry, I've been there. And maybe your husband is still there or your wife is. Just let them know that our children have a challenge rooted in anxiety. That's the only way I can explain it. Their nervous system can flip from fight or flight just like that because it's their tolerance, right? Every human has a level of tolerance for rejection or not getting what they want, but their window of tolerance is much more narrow. And if their sibling rejects them or if they can't get the dessert before dinner, then their nervous system, it really is capable of going from 0 to 100 super, super fast. So knowing this, that's why I'm trying to say before we even get into the how, knowing this, understanding what's happening for them, that they can't control it, that it is an anxiety disorder, you're shouting at your child, they don't need that. They are already in a state of fight or flight and they're struggling to regulate their emotions, and they don't know how they got angry so fast, and they could just find themselves lashing out. And that's kind of sad when you think about it. They're not in control of what's happening. So knowing this, it really kind of gave me a desire to approach my child in a different way. And understanding everything, I stopped seeing her smacking as a bad behavior. I'm not saying smacking is a good behavior, but smacking is actually a stress response. Now, you might think, what a load of bullshit. Well, it's not, because when a child with demand avoidance experiences a demand, internal, external, or social, and we can go into those demands on another chat, that child tries to alleviate the pressure of the demand by getting X from another person. And when they don't get what they need out of it, and there's a loss of control, then we see the reaction, which could be sometimes physical, unfortunately. So how do we stop the physical attacking? Well, this is the tactical part. And most parents know that if one child is hitting another child, you put yourself in between. And what if they're attacking you? Well, with Ruby, I always give her distance and space. And I go in there, and no matter how mad she is, I keep calm. I make sure I get down low. I'll say her name. I'll tell her it's okay. I'll tell her I'm here. And I'll take a big breath and I'll breathe out. And I'm trying to get her to catch on. That's really what I'm trying to do. Because this attempt to co-regulate, she's a little pilot in her plane and I'm the co-pilot. I'm trying to get her to borrow my calm. And I love that phrase from a parent I was speaking with. We want them to borrow that calm to calm down. And if I could pick her up, she's getting bigger, and take her to the garden or to the front of the house, as a bit of a distraction, change the scenery, I would. But I've also learned that this can add to intensity and make them get more upset. In addition to this, shouting out safe hands when we've had restorative conversations, that later on reflecting, that's helped her put her hands together when she wants to give her brothers a wallop. And sometimes I'll put a cushion in front of her in the kitchen or the living room or the bedroom to just let her anger out there and then. Now, validating feelings, not trying to correct the child, just anchoring the child, staying with them is key, and accepting that I'm going to be there for 10 to 15 minutes is a game changer. Because Ruby can tell when I'm trying to rush through regulating her emotions, and that often ends badly. Excuse me, I think your child can sense it. So this is all part of the tactical stuff, I'd say. But what I think that made the big difference with Ruby to reduce her smacking and hitting, it wasn't the tactical, it was the strategic. It's what happened after. The in-the-moment interventions that brought change to my daughter's outbursts, they help. But what created the shift, if you like, were the deeper things. So like the relational work, the relationship between Ruby and I, the quiet, like connective moments we shared outside of the drama. And it's going to sound so simple, but you know what I'm going to say? Your child requires time. I wasn't spending enough time with my daughter. My daughter now sees me as a source of regulation and safety, and I've created that sense of emotional safety because of the investment I've put in by giving her my time and attention. And it could be anything, and I'll give you some examples. Watching a movie and a character hit another character, watching a Disney movie, it was an opportunity to explore. Oh wow, that character was very angry, big emotions. I wonder how the other person felt. Provides a reflection. Like, these conversations become a doorway to understanding. Taking little walks is a big part of our routine, and giving spaces for conversations that allow there to be some reflection really work. So what kind of conversations? Well, Ruby loves to hear about my childhood. She sees pictures of me as a kid. We look alike. She asks me about my mum and dad, and I use that as an opportunity to say, my mum and dad are really good mummy and daddy, but sometimes when they got mad, they smacked me for smacking my brothers. So I'm kind of like inviting that inquiry and that curiosity. And then I play the curious child, and Ruby, what should I do about that? What is it that my mummy and daddy could have done? And that again, it brings up other common topics that we use, things like emotions. So she knows about sad emotions, angry, happy, and so on, and different versions. And in our little kind of walks to the bakery, or when we go to the park, or when we're in the garden, or we're pottering around the house, all of these are informal, gentle, restorative conversations that are built on a connection with my daughter. And I see her expressing those emotions when she's got angry and she's not hit. She say, I'm feeling the angry version of Ruby. And she might swear, but she doesn't hit. So that's definitely an improvement in my book. And alongside these kind of relationship building activities, all of course done through time, I think it meets Ruby's needs more, and that's actually helping her regulate better when these situations kick off. Because our children, like any child, has a need to feel seen and to feel safe and to feel heard, even more so when they have this anxiety challenge of demand avoidance. So when her brother rejects her because he doesn't want to play Minecraft, or when her other brother surprises her and that surprise makes her angry, or when I say, no, you can't have the cookie before dinner, these are all triggers for her anger. And this is another part of the strategic strategy that I would say that you want to do, not in the moment, but later. These are the things that matter. So how do I now create games that focus on those triggers, but Ruby shows much more positive regulation? So for example, Ruby doesn't like rejection. No child does. But her reaction is a lot more extreme. Are there any scenarios where Ruby is rejected in a game and she handles it better? That's one thing to think about. She doesn't like the surprise. That can send her into the fight or flight. Are there any situations in a game, it could be Snap for goodness sake, or any game like that, where there's a sudden response that she wasn't expecting? Can we play those games and then start to normalize a more positive reaction? So the strategic stuff is about building the relationship, using stories, using metaphors, using topics, using words to anchor them back to more positive behavior to regulate their emotions. And it's also about figuring out what their triggers are for the anger and then trying to simulate those situations where there are triggers in a safe, supportive, fun environment, and then trying to, say, oh, well, whoa, that was a big surprise, wasn't it? And, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, when your brother surprises you, to not give him a big wallop, to say, oh, that's giving me the shocked feeling or the angry feeling, but to not necessarily act on it. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes energy, and just know that this is a roller coaster. It's not like this linear, straightforward, predictable process. Demand avoiding children will always surprise you, but I have found that the relationship building, the tactical part, the strategic thinking around all of this, it certainly has improved things with my daughter. Giving her my time, big, big, big game changer. If you've enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. Let's get the word out. There's a big demand avoidance community that doesn't feel heard. And I think it's time that they were, and we were heard. All right, well, have a good day, and thanks for watching. All the best.